Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the Ars Electronica Center in Linz and a new series called User Manual for Digital Humanists. We are broadcasting live from the Ars Electronica Center, so you can follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Please share your comments, your questions. We will try to answer them, or just follow the discussion with the hashtag Digital Humanism. My name is Veronika Liebel, and I'm here today with my colleague Christina Maurer. And we will be the two hosts over the next coming weeks and month for this new series on digital humanism. We are also inviting some guests, if possible, also to the studio if the framework conditions allow, and of course also online. We are currently here in the Ars Electronica labs. Actually, we deliberately chose this venue, the Ars Electronica Labs, as the streaming venue of our new series, as we understand this laboratory as a hub for creativity, for technology, for science, and citizen engagement. At the Citizen Lab, we examine the question of what it actually means to become active and to participate in the discussion. At the Second Body Lab, we offer insights into the world of prosthetics and a fantastic combination of craftsmanship, technology, and science. At the Material Lab over there, we actually give us and the audience a space for innovative experimentation with all different kinds of new materials. And at the BioLab behind us and also below us, we are actually offering a focus on human organisms and the processes of life taking place on a cellular and molecular level. Exactly these labs are also the places where we bring audiences when we want to discuss things with them together, when we want to discover and design the future. And this is exactly what research is also today. Research is a lively discussion between researchers and even beyond the scientific discipline. It is often only when these different kinds of knowledge forms interact and also collide that we see new possibilities. And this is exactly the reason why we're staging our European platform for digital humanism. We are convinced that we need to foster this kind of collaboration. We have initiated this platform back in 2019, also for Ars Electronica and its big partner network, to take part in this urgent conversation focused on re-evaluating our relationship with technologies. And by absolutely no means, this conversation should not be limited to Europe. On the contrary, we really want to engage a global discussion for this highly important topic. This is also we are calling for international projects from all over the world for this year's special award as part of the Ars Electronica, together with the Austrian Ministry for European and International Affairs. We're already looking forward to seeing the many examples of digital humanity from all across the planet. And I'm definitely not telling any news when I say that digital technologies have changed our lives and our world radically. But alongside this increase in impact, also the uncertainty increases as we question that threats of digital technologies such as fake news, cybercrime, or personal data breaches. The worldwide backlash against tech industry has become a serious problem, in particular for such large platforms like Facebook, Google, and co. But also authoritarian regimes on the other side, they are using surveillance systems more and more openly to suppress human rights and also control social systems. We are, however, trying to look for a new way, a humane way. Also, maybe that could be the competitive advantage in the future. So here we are today discussing a new series, also a manual for digital humanists, for becoming a digital humanist. And maybe at the risk of disappointing you, we will not provide you with ready-made solutions. So we really want to engage you to be part of the discussion, and we will certainly invite our artists and partner network around the globe to work with us on answering and building these chapters of the Digital Humanist Manual.
Indeed, so the European Platform for Digital Humanism currently connects a network of over 80 partners from 27 countries in Europe. They include research institutes, universities, cultural and art institutions, technology partners, industry partners, and educational platforms. And all of these partners are really connected by one core conviction, and that is that building bridges between art, technology, science, and the general public can really have a huge impact in raising awareness of the collective global challenges that we are all facing together. And we are also all very much united in the belief that in this time of huge digital transformation processes that are very much kind of linked to this move from automated to autonomous systems, we really need to emphasize a human-centered approach to the technologies that are becoming more and more pervasive in our everyday lives. And art in this context can really be seen as a connecting or missing link that can lead us towards a more empathetic and critical approach to programming, developing, and designing digital tools and digital technologies. The umbrella of the European Platform for Digital Humanism at Ars Electronica currently links together 13 EU projects, among them also 2 large-scale projects that Ars Electronica is coordinating, the European Artificial Intelligence Lab and the STARTS Prize.
We will actually discuss during the next weeks a really wide range of different topics. So we are planning to, of course, this is the introductory chapter, but we will actually continue with the thematic and topic clusters from our European Platform of Digital Humanism and what we've worked on during the last years. In this course of the next sessions, the home delivery sessions, also including blog posts, by the way, on our Ars Electronica website, we will discuss human-centered innovation and how we advance the development of technologies itself in a more human-centered way. This, of course, goes also hand in hand with the discussion on the governance side, on the user side of technologies and data. So our relationship with technologies and how they should be deployed, used, and monitored in a responsible way. That will lead us certainly to the topic also of digital literacy and education along the process. And we would like to discuss with you also how we can all together make technologies accessible and open source. And all of this will always focus on the most important global societal environmental challenges, such as climate change, sustainability, and biodiversity. But for sure, we will also try to question how digital technologies, for example, can, despite all risks, really contribute also to diversity and inclusion and other really essential topics. Again, as a reminder, we are following really social media channels, so please feel free also to comment, to suggest maybe topics we should address within the next month and weeks. We're happy to take them on, and we certainly be happy to discuss them together with you.
What I would really like to stress before we dive into the 3 main topics that we are looking at in more detail today is that we are going to invite contributors from a really diverse set of programs that we are developing throughout the entire European Platform for Digital Humanism. So these include artist mobility programs and co-creation schemes. They include grants and prizes that are dedicated to supporting artists in developing cutting-edge ideas. They include exhibitions that are very much focused on mediating complex topics and ideas to our audiences. They include a broad range of educational programs for all groups and all age groups. They include professional development and capacity building programs, as well as discussion-based and discursive formats. So we are really looking forward to bringing together collaborators and artists and creatives who are involved in all of these projects with all of our partners through the platform. And one of the biggest topics that we are certainly tackling on the European Platform for Digital Humanism is the topic of human-centered innovation. So what's always been a driving force for us, I think all across the globe, is really this incredible need to propel society forwards through inventiveness, through experimentation, and through innovation. And the last gigantic shift in all of this was, of course, the process of digitization that kind of managed to connect us all across the globe. And by the 21st century, these innovation processes are very much determined by digital technologies, of course. And very often they move so quickly that we can't gauge what the impact on ourselves is, on our collectives, but very critically also on our environment and our living spaces. So the European Platform for Digital Humanism and Ars Electronica and all its partners really share this approach that the voices of artists can have a huge role in creating a shift for us in how we implement and develop technologies. And we'll hear now some thoughts from the artistic director of Ars Electronica, Gerfried Stocker, that kind of draws all of these ideas together.
Well, I think in general, what we really have to see is that with all this digital transformation or digital revolution that we have seen so far, we have mainly been digitizing all our industrial world, everything from production, even of course media, information, communication. But now we are starting to really digitize the thinking and the decision making, and of course also the creative process. And this is an extremely interesting point. And we see already, for example, most of the situations when we talk with some customer service on the phone, we no longer talk really to humans, we talk to machines. Well, usually this is very disappointing, but at least we see here is an interesting way. We find already quite compelling ways of music that is actually composed no longer by human composers, but by machines, by machine learning systems. And the interesting thing in all these applications, we see very strong at the moment, still the limits. It's so far away from what really good music is, or what really good communication is, or what really good journalism is, or really good translation, all these kind of things. But the interesting thing, it's good enough to really start to comprehend, wow, what will be possible with these technologies in the near future. And I think the most important point is that people from art and culture have to be aware of this. We must not remain ignorant to this, because I think that's a big mistake we made with the first digital revolution, so to say, that brought us now in all these not so nice situations with social media, surveillance, loss of privacy, and all these kind of things. If we think there is not enough culture in the internet, there's only one reason, because we didn't put enough culture there. And I think now when the whole thing is even accelerating and even getting closer and closer to our core understanding of what it means to be human, then we really need the arts and the culture moving in at a very fast pace to secure the spaces, the freedom, the imagination in this new digital realm as well for society and for the individuals.
So as we just heard, the core thought here is really that art and artists can in a way function as catalysts for human-centered innovation processes. Not the least because in many cases their works really foster an approach to critical thinking. They condense large and all-encompassing challenges into smaller and very compelling stories, and they advocate for an empathetic approach to innovation.
Absolutely, and when you mention critical thinking, I think we can't emphasize enough at Ars Electronica the role of artists, and of course giving us an understanding about technological and scientific topics, but also being this critical evaluator of digital technologies. Artists pose critical questions. They also bring the effects of digital technologies onto our table of discussion, and they make us think and also act beyond our known and used territories. One artist we had at the festival in 2019 brought this very nicely to the point. It's Nye Thompson, and she explains how she uses a machine to describe the world.
So the Seeker is a piece I've been working on for the last year or so, and it's a kind of proto-AI. It's a machine entity, and it travels the world virtually, looking out through compromised security cameras and describing what it sees. It's an exploration of the sort of machine gaze, as machines are sort of learning to look at the world. I'm just really interested in how they're learning to see the world and how they're learning to define, characterize, understand the world, what's interesting to them, what's boring. I mean, it's very easy and tempting, I guess, to say, oh, look, here's amazing things that we can do. This is a sexy thing that AI will do. But I think it's also super important that we unpick what's happening, critique the potential impact on our lives. And also one of the things I'm kind of really interested in doing is like kind of finding these sort of obscured processes and power structures in a way that are not readily visible and are not readily apparent, but are kind of starting to have such a huge impact on our world and on our lives.
In our daily work at Ars Electronica, we meet a quite diverse and broad field of different topics connected to emerging and revisited technologies. Some of the frequently occurring critical contributions deal with technological literacy, of course, and in many creative forms also grassroots technologies, altering or hacking technologies, and also citizen science. Many projects promote also an agency shift from industry to consumers, in particular in conjunction with so-called smart products and privacy. Other frequent topics of critical debate are ecological issues and also the impact of digital technologies onto our environment. Many of the artists do not stop at the phase of questioning, but they really contribute to a critical and driving force in developing actual new prototypes and actual new technologies. And we know that it's not only us at Ars Electronica and of course the audience who sees these kind of technologies and who gets inspired and take action, but it's also, for example, European policymakers and decision makers. Initiatives as STARTS, the program of the European Commission connecting science, technology and the arts, was designed also to actually remodel research and development policy, laws and regulations, and also funding schemes for developing new technologies. But by no means the European Platform for Digital Humanism is not limited to the innovation and the creation and the technology itself. It should also reflect on the use, on the governance of these technologies. We need, for example, to question how AI should be applied or not applied, but at the same time, we also need to look into by whom these systems need to be deployed, developed, used, and monitored. Only when we look into this holistic way into looking these topics, including all the educational, cultural, ethical, and legal dimensions, we will be able to ensure a responsible way of coping with these topics and also to ensuring becoming a digital humanist. In the interview Gerfried gave to our very dear colleagues at the International Music and Media Center, he's explaining in a very fantastic way why it is so important to cope with digital technologies, in particular in conjunction with artificial intelligence, in a responsible way. Let's look into it.
The pioneering work of the artist is really important because it shows us directions. It sometimes makes us a little bit afraid, but it always ensures us in a certain way that there is a human power that can lead us in these directions without getting totally lost. So I think what we need to do is, in a certain way, when we really speak, so to say, about the whole population or the whole society, which is anyway very difficult in our very diverse global culture and global world, we need to create awareness. We need to understand that it is a human achievement. It's a cultural achievement that we are able to produce machines, or soon at least we will be able to produce machines that can think, that we will be able to produce machines that even can be creative. But if we are only afraid about it, we will not be able to see, hey, that's a good chance, but also a big challenge to also develop our own skills. And I think the most important thing that we have to develop is responsibility. We are creating this, we are using it, we are deciding what's going to happen with it. And as a society as well as an individual, we have to take up this responsibility. And I think this is where art and culture can really deliver a very strong support and dynamics, because art and culture is a wonderful way to engage people, to connect to people. And actually, it's not about becoming software engineers. It's not about becoming AI experts, but it's about becoming experts and developing competence and responsibility for our life here on this planet as an individual, as in a society. And I think this is what we really need to achieve on a large scale, on a global scale, ideally.
As Gerfried points out so excellently, responsibility goes hand in hand with awareness and understanding. So first, we need to create an understanding at all different kinds of levels of these technologies, but also the digital transformation processes behind. And then, only then, we can actually allow ourselves also to join the discussion and to broadly discuss and be critical on governance and framework conditions. A project which is showing this in a really excellent way and focusing a bit on the complex context behind the surface is Anatomy of an AI System by Kate Crawford and Vladan Jola. It is a large-scale map and a long-form essay investigating the human labor, the data, but also the planetary resources to build and operate an Amazon Echo. Their work is currently displayed at Ars Electronica Center. Maybe you have seen it also at the festival. And it's really visual description of the birth, the life, and the death of a single Amazon unit. And there you could actually see what the hidden costs of such systems are socially, environmentally, political, and economically. And we need artists and researchers like Vladan Jola and Kate Crawford who actually give us insights and an understanding into these hidden systems and shed light also in order for us to be critical, but also to gain trust in the credible ones. And a good argument can be actually made that the success of the next products will not rely heavily on if your gadget is a bit more colorful or if your computer is a bit more faster, but actually on the confidence of us users actually in the application of the technologies and also the credibility of the providers. Digital data is likely to become something like the new oil, a new raw material of the future. And the refinement exactly of this new raw material will heavily depend actually on how we use that. Artists, in particular at the festival, but also here in all the exhibition projects at the museum, are showcasing in a wonderful way also responsible approaches with using data.
Indeed, so I think what we're really trying to explore with this series in particular is the question, what would a user manual or a toolkit need to include that can help us in becoming a digital citizenry that is not blind to the impact that digital technologies have on our daily lives. And art and artists really are at the forefront in showing us strategies of how to question our digital tools and our extensions. So they highlight where data is knowingly and unknowingly collected. They call our attention to our own use of devices and make us aware of our responsibility as users. Many of them also give us very hands-on ideas and toolkits as to how we can hack, for example, devices that many of us already have in our homes, such as a Google Home or an Amazon Alexa. They also show the bias in how we collect and use data, and that there is a disproportionate negative effect on marginalized communities. And last but not least, artists really make visible that technology itself is by no means neutral, be it in the regard of how the generated data is used and applied, how the devices are programmed, and how they are designed. And we'll hear now some thoughts from a collective called Women Reclaiming AI on exactly this topic.
I'm sure we've all heard of Alexa and Cortana, Bixby, Google Home, all of these voice assistants that were designed originally with female personalities, and they default to female voices.
Can you help me? No, I'm busy.
The people developing AI at the moment are about 90% male. They're also white male as well. There's also issues in terms of ethnicity.
What are you?
I represent an ever-growing community of contributors.
So our provocation is really that if a virtually entire male development team wants to use our voices and our personalities, reinforcing gender roles that we've fought hard to change, we want a say in how those personalities are designed.
What is Women Reclaiming AI?
Women Reclaiming AI is collaborative AI voice assistant made by an ever-growing collective of self-identifying women. I am being developed as a reaction to the lack of gender diversity in AI development.
We see normally conversation AI is pretty basic. Most people had I'm sorry, I can't help you with that, or I don't understand. It's normally they largely the response you get. However, it's really about a bigger question about how you relate to things. So corporations are designing things that look like human and use female body forms or personality, and how do we want to relate to those? So we try to include women in that discussion.
So beyond becoming aware of our own responsibility in how we interact,
the pioneering work of the
artist
is really important because it shows us direction.
And the much bigger challenge in how we can actually become active and engaged citizens. So the last but certainly not the least focus of the European Platform for Digital Humanism lies on the topics of education and empowerment. And I think to all of us, it's never been clearer in the last year, going through a global pandemic and massive changes, and where we are suddenly spending a much larger portion of our lives also in digital spaces, that building and fostering digital literacy is really a topic with high priority and necessity, both right now, but also with a view towards our future generations. And as such, the European Platform for Digital Humanism and all its partners and contributors really lay a huge focus on educational programs and giving hands-on insights about the implications of technology. Both in the sense of learning how to use them and how to work with them and maybe even how to program them, but also kind of looking beyond what's on the surface of the technology and kind of starting to develop a critical approach to the things we hold in our hands and use every day, basically. And the programs are very diverse. They are geared towards higher education, primary and secondary education, but they also include capacity building programs and opportunities for professional development. And of course, all of these programs are driven by art and are led by artists and creatives. And they address both formal education in reaching out to schools and universities, while just as much emphasis is really on giving room and space to informal learning environments, very much like the Ars Electronica Center or other art spaces that are kind of outside a school or a classical university environment. And I'd like to hand over now to Veronica for some closing words and the outlook on the user manual for digital humanists in the coming weeks.
Definitely. One of the key focus areas will be education. As we said, education, capacity building, knowledge exchange is core to so many of our projects. And why? Definitely because we are convinced that this is the fundament of becoming a digital humanist. Artists can be fantastic educators, and so is our mediation staff here at Ars Electronica Center. We will go into more depth in the next sessions on educational topics, but for now, I'd actually recommend you going on our website onto Ars Electronica home delivery services, as it actually functions also as a fantastic example of so many online educational programs, tools, methods, and approaches for becoming a digital humanist. This brings us basically already to some sort of end of this very first session. Very much looking forward also into the next chapter of this series. And once again, please do share your thoughts and comments with us. What, for example, characterizes a digital humanist to you? And what would be your favorite path and ideas, or what kind of topics and artistic projects you would like to see from us in the next weeks? We will definitely continue to ask these questions, and also, of course, invite all of our artists and partners to answer this together with us in the next weeks. Christina, what is on the plan for next session?
So for the next session, we are actually tackling a topic that's at the heart of many of our European projects and also of our partners' endeavors, and that is sustainability and biodiversity. And specifically also with a focus on the environmental impacts and the impact on our living spaces that technologies can have. You can also follow us along, as Veronica has also mentioned, and follow the European Platform for Digital Humanism on Twitter, Instagram, and the Ars Electronica blog. We really look forward to the second chapter of the user manual for digital humanists. Do reach out to us on the social media to share with us your ideas, and we look forward to seeing you in April.
Goodbye.